Welcome to our latest video. I am actually FIDE Master Alex King, and this is my friend and student Mark Louderback. I'm still living in 2021, guys.
You
Um,
are. You
th
are.
this is our latest video together, and in this video we are going to look at a game from a chess book that Mark just recently bought and started reading. Mark, tell us about the book and about this game.
So the book is, let's show it a little backwards here and all that. The book is Logical Chess by Irving Chernev. I had, you listen, you hear different things and all that, and it came out as a recommended book and all of that. And I was like, okay, let me get it. Let me start to read it. And I am not a big fan of books. Okay, I mean, just sort of throw it out there. I when I get books and all that, it takes me so long to do it. I want to actually like go through all of the games. I want to sort of, they'll show a position. I'll be like, how did they get there? And let me take a look at this. And so it just doing books and all that has been so very painful. It's kind of this slow process. But with Logical Chess, on the other hand, he already is doing this. He is going through these games blow by blow, move by move, comment after comment on all sorts of things. And in fact, just to begin with, I mean, he will go on and I've heard, other people talking about it. It's like in this first game, it's like the first move and all that E4. And he's like, this is why this is the best move. Let me go over this. Let me talk about this. And then in a couple games further down the line, he's like, E4, once again, let's take a look at a great move. This is astounding. This is awesome. This is what we need to be doing here. So he's very, it's a lot of fun to, to sort of be going through and kind of discovering where he's talking about being like, look, there's a reason why people make these moves and all that, and this is why they do it.
Okay, cool. So, is this first game from the book the only one you've gone through so far?
No, I've gone through actually, I think up to six of them or four of them, something along those lines.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
trying to, I'm motoring through.
Okay, cool. I've never read this book all the way through. I've probably like dipped into it here and there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But this first game is not familiar to me. I haven't looked through the whole game yet, so I'll be interested to see you take me through the game as presented by Chernev in the book, and then we'll
Absolutely.
start kind of taking a deeper look together.
Chernev is he's also he's just a lot of fun to read. Uh he has these quotes from all sorts of different people, chess players, Greek philosophers, random things. And so, we're going to start the move here. As Philidor says, the game cannot be better opened than by advancing the king's pawn 2 squares.
All
Uh,
right.
this is also the fun part of reading an older book where it's not in algebraic notation, and so you're sort of like, all right, I'm having to translate this. I think I've got this and all that, but you know so we'll
Yeah.
see. All right, so you know we're playing e4. That's because this is taking control of the center. All right, we're putting this pawn out here and all that. We're opening up lanes for two pieces. What's the only better move, Alex? Hmm.
Well, I'm more of a D4 guy myself, but
That's
I
right.
have recently been playing E4 more. So anyway, let's get to the interesting part of the game. Beyond the point where Chernev just puts like, a quote from JFK after every move
uh,
in the opening.
you need to sort of have the idea of what's going on with this here and all that. Okay, so um, actually, to kind of to steal some of the thunder going up here, what Chernev is talking about in this first chapter is the king side attack, and so he is very quickly going to go in and talk about weakening your king side and the problem that comes with that.
Okay.
So, we just sort of have a standard little Italian, all that, completely normal. He highlights, of course, this move right here, saying, the idea being that we're going to be pushing into the center. So, what is going to be the proper response from, from black? And he says that with this move, that it's a good move. It's parrying this threat and all of that. It's going to, black is going to be able to come in and take the pawn if there's some exchange that goes on. He is very big in saying that any move off the back rank is developing the piece. So, you have this move and, the queen, it's a single space. But at the same time, it's developing and it's making a difference in the actual game. So we have a castles, and then we have here once again just kind of another supporting move, preparing for what's going to be happening next, which is that white is going to be pushing into the center. Now he will sort of go over a couple different lines here and saying, well, what happens if black is going to take here? What would that look like? And just kind of going through and being like, this is going to be a problematic position then for black, with the support that has here. So he says, black plays the correct move in just pulling back, okay, just not leaving the tension in the center. And then obviously at this point we know that Chernev is was written a few years before Alpha Zero came out, because we have this amazingly powerful rook pawn move here, and Chernev is dismissive of it.
Okay.
He is Stockfish playing Alpha Zero here, unfortunately.
And what does he say about this move?
He says, what does he say specifically? A tricky move, but an illogical one.
Oh, an illogical. That's about the worst thing that Chernev could say about a move, considering the title of his book, right?
That is quite correct. Correct.
All right.
I mean, and you kind of, you sort of get this idea where he's like, look, you have pieces here that you have not developed yet. All right. And, you're throwing up the pawn here and all that. It's not going to actually do anything. Okay. Your opponent is not simply going to, sit his bishop there. So you're going to be able to come forward here. All right. And just take it. So he's not happy about that. And specifically, he says this, develop all your pieces before starting any combinations. Develop all your pieces before starting any combinations. I'm sort of like, okay, you kind of get and understand what he is talking about. I'm sure there are times when this rule is broken, but.
Well, sure. Let's see how it goes.
But we have just, a simple response to this, right? I mean, this is kind of putting it in its tracks here. But the funny thing is that, white just kind of continues to push it here. It's not as though he's sort of like, okay, well, he's going to be moving his bishop back. I'm going to be moving my pawn forward. This isn't going to do anything. No, he continues with the attack and just, throws forward. He goes through that there is this, this idea that, that white could take with this. All right. You could, if you wanted to, you could, if you wanted to, bishop can take here. Sorry, I'm, screwing up my arrows. Bishop can take here. It's protected by the knight. But then, pawn goes forward, knight has to move, bishop is unprotected, rook comes forward and takes here. So this is a, sort of problematic kind of thing. Or in the same way, bishop takes and all of that. Well, then, knight takes, you're going to kind of have the same sort of a problematic line coming up where, pressure comes on it and you're going to have to, you're going to be dropping one or other of the pieces there.
Okay.
But
All right. We'll take a closer look at that later. But yeah. So in the game, Black retreats.
in the game, Black retreats. Okay. Now, then, in the game here, all right, you want to talk about an insult? White plays H3, and our author says a coffee house move.
Wow. Okay. All right. So does he say anything further about it? I mean, it looks like a pretty normal move to me.
No, he says that weaker players make this move instinctively, yielding to base instincts in dire dread of having a piece pinned. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, this is it's very well written. It's fun to read here and all that. But he says no. He says in this situation, it's better to submit to the pin than it is to weaken. Okay, the protection of your king, and any movement of the pawn, all right, is going to result in a weakening of this protection. And so, he is just like, anything that and obviously I'm sure there's going to be exceptions coming up here in the future and all of that. But as as Tarash says, you should never, unless of necessity or to gain an advantage, move the pawns in front of the castled king. For each
Okay.
pawn loosens the position. Do you want an Alekine quote as well? I can throw one of those out for you
No,
as well here.
let's keep proceeding
Let's
here.
see what happens. Let's see what happens here. Okay. We have simply a kind of normal development, and then we have, a resolution of this, of the tension that's here. But in doing so, this is simply playing into Black's advantage. All right. And we're going to see exactly how this happens. All right. And this is just kind of a strong move that he says. This is much better than taking with the pawn. He says this knight located right here in the center, extremely powerful, extremely good. It's radiating, and this is interesting. He says this is radiating, authority in all sorts of directions, and that is something that if it were a pawn, all right, that the pawn would not be doing that. I thought that was very interesting. Just sort of a way of looking at that.
Okay. All right.
So White can't have it there. White takes, and then Black again doesn't take with the pawn, but instead takes with the queen. All right. So now, we have the queen, and he is sort of like, oh, this is terrific, queen in the center. This is looking very good. This is a little bit, different from maybe how you would sort of talk with your, with students about that being like, queen in the center makes itself a nice little target and all of that. But here, I mean, White is set up in a situation where it has very little to kind of target the queen with. In fact, White is kind of already back on his heels just a little bit.
Okay.
So he says he plays out, this move right here, sort of expecting that if we did have some sort of, move along these lines, that we would have this, this terrific pin here at the end. But what we see instead is Black sacrificing a piece. H3 was pushed forward, and so in the next move here, Black snaps it off. It becomes sort of a target. So White takes, and then we kind of see the power of having your queen sitting here in this situation, and more importantly than that, the power of having your bishop x-raying through to the king. I mean, the queen is coming right up here, giving check. We can kind of see exactly what's going to happen. So even at this situation, if and he kind of notes this here and maybe a couple of other places where this happens. He's like, worst case scenario, you're trading your piece for 2 pawns. It's not the worst sacrifice in the world that you're doing here. But in this situation, on the other hand, because Black's knight is sitting right there, able to bring that in, okay, this is now, you know, we've got checkmate. And so white needs to do something in order to defend. White plays his knight over here to f3. Um, and Black just, pushes the king around and then comes in with his bishop. Now,
And
here,
this is the end of the game, right? White
the
resigns
end
here.
of the game, White resigns. Okay.
And what does Chernev say here at the conclusion here? Does he give any additional analysis, or does he just wrap it up with something from Marcus Aurelius or something?
If only he quoted from Marcus Aurelius. No, I mean he's simply saying that the threat is going to is going to be that queen is going to be able to come over. If you block with the knight, you're able to come in and still do mate. If you if and there's no reason not to show this and all that, if if white takes, then we're still going to be able to come out with mate, right? So this is just it's an utterly strong position, and this is winnable, and it all happened because of that one move of h3 by by white. Uh,
Okay.
just a kind of this coffee house preventative move, not wanting to have the bishop, you know, uh, uh, pin your knight here and all that. This preventative move here, and this allows for this strong king side attack, and that's
Okay.
kind of how the first game goes.
Okay. Very interesting. So,
It is. It is.
a short game, right? A miniature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, what I want to do, so like I said, I hadn't seen that game before, so thanks for showing it to me, Mark, and conveying Chernev's narrative regarding it. And so now, I mean, I have some skepticism regarding some of Chernev's claims in his notes to this game, as I often do. Um, so what I want to do is I want to turn on the engine here on Lichess. So we're going to turn on Stockfish. Um,
Not Alpha
and
Zero.
yeah, no,
Mm.
I think Stockfish will be enough just to
Oh, well.
it'll be a good first pass. So so yeah, we're going to go through the game with Stockfish running and um, and interrogate some of Chernev's claims about what were the good moves and what were the bad moves. All right. So obviously nothing was crazy in the opening here. These are all theoretical moves. The first move that was looked a little funny to me was Queen E7. The main move here is Knight F6, which is also Stockfish's top recommendation. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see about Queen E7. So Stockfish is critical of Queen E7, saying that the evaluation is jumping from about 0 to about 1. So um, yeah, that sort of fits in with my um, suspicion regarding it. That's actually a bit worse than I thought it was going to be. That's a little bit more critical than I thought Stockfish was going to be of this move. But okay,
And why
so
do you think that is? I mean, what?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just a bit worse than I would have thought. Um, I mean, I think the idea of Queen E7 is that, Black wants to do this setup where he retreats his bishop and solidifies the center with D6 without, for example, allowing some sort of trade of queens. That's the idea of Queen E7, but let's just keep going. I mean, it's possible that Stockfish's evaluation will become slightly more muted as we continue. So castles, D6, just as I said, that the evaluation looks like it's getting at least slightly more muted. I mean, it's gone from like plus 1.2 to just plus 1.0. It might dip below plus 1.0. As we've talked about in previous videos, Mark, the plus one threshold is about where I consider it to be transitioning from like slight advantage for white to clear advantage for white.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, I mean, it's an arbitrary threshold, but according to that arbitrary threshold, this could be a sort of significant area of evaluation that we're in here, where black is sort of on the cusp of those two evaluation categories. Okay, so d4 was played, bishop b6. All this is remaining stable. Um, and then here we go. So if you look at Stockfish's top two suggestions here, uh,
Like,
the
throw that
top
pawn.
the top suggestion of the computer is in fact this illogical move that
Yes.
Chernev so disdains,
Mm.
a4. And by the way, Stockfish's next top suggestion, which it considers basically equivalent to that, is the coffee house move h3. So already we're getting some pushback by Stockfish of what Chernev is claiming in his notes. So a4, black plays a6, and then white plays a5. So this move is actually a significant inaccuracy. A5. Yeah, this is
Hmm.
what I was wondering during the game. Like, why can't black just take the pawn? And so does Chernev, at this point, Mark, does Chernev give a specific variation about why black can't play knight takes a5?
I was wondering about that. I was.
Because yeah, I was able to see easily that like bishop takes a5 doesn't work just d5, and then the knight is hanging, and if the knight moves, then the bishop is hanging. Okay,
So
that's easy to calculate.
he says, um,
Knight takes.
knight takes, knight takes, rook takes, bishop takes, queen check.
That's it. That's all he says because black then has b5. So he must have just missed this b5 move, um, which is what I was thinking during the game. Like, this doesn't work because of b5. So the idea is that after queen takes, then this is hanging. And, you know, black is up material here, right? Black is up the exchange and a pawn. So this is
Yeah.
actually very bad for white, or it's at least somewhat bad for white. It somewhat surprisingly, the computer is only giving like, -1. I mean, uh, which is a little bit weird because black is up 3 points of material, so maybe it's a bit more complicated for positional reasons. White has some compensation, but this is still not good for white, that's for sure.
Well, because after this, black plays here.
Well, that's
White
one
plays
thing
white
black,
plays
that's one
here.
thing white can play. It doesn't even, I'm not even sure if that's white's best move. It could be, or just maybe just taking this pawn, takes, takes. That's what I'm seeing here. So white gets the pawn back. I mean, I guess white is then getting another pawn back maybe by force. And so then black, it will be, instead of black being up the exchange and a pawn, it'll be black will be up the exchange for a pawn. And so that would,
Well, but
I
in
guess,
that case, yeah, I mean, your e4 pawn is going to fall.
well, I'm not sure if it is because but black is still going to have to reckon with this possibility, whether or not he's
Yeah, but
castled.
there's no piece protecting the rook in that case.
No, but I'm just saying like, okay, it's White's move here. Maybe well, first of all, computer is saying just F3 possibly, just defending the pawn, and then this
Sure,
guy is
sure.
like sort of dead. And so then White would actually, if White can collect that pawn, White would have one pawn for the exchange. That I mean that would make sense about why the evaluation overall is like -1, because Black would only be
Hmm.
up 1 point of material at that point. But in any event, all of this means that knight takes a5 was perfectly good for black. There was no punishment of that. If white tries to punish it, it backfires for white, which means that a5 was not a good move. A5 was not the best move. And I mean, when you were showing the game to me, you didn't give any indication that like Chernev was condemning the move A5. Um, he condemned the move A4, but he wasn't pointing out that A5 was a serious inaccuracy when in fact it is a serious inaccuracy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that was again because of this tactical problem in the variation that Chernev was giving. I think he just didn't see, he overlooked this B5 move, which
Yeah.
turns the tables basically. So yeah, instead of A5, computer is again suggesting this so-called coffee house move
Yes.
H3 for white, after which white is better. I mean, it just thinks that white has a better position here. Okay, but so let's see. So A5 and black did not play the best move. Knight takes A5, black played bishop A7. And now we're back to white being better again. When black missed his chance to play knight takes A5. Now we're back to white being better again. So, and
Not by
then,
much though. I mean, I mean,
well,
it's
plus
within
one.
the.
I mean, plus one is, I mean, that's like a clear advantage for white, or just about a clear advantage for white. So, I mean, that's something significant actually. It's not winning, but it's something significant. So, H3. Yeah, the coffee house move, right? Again, like one of Stockfish's
Mm-hmm.
top suggestions here. Um, there's another move, rook e1. So it's not like white needed to play h3, but it's perfectly fine. So again, just like the opposite of what Chernev is saying in the notes. And black plays knight f6, and then white plays d takes e5. Yeah, so this is the move that I thought was suspicious during the game, and it is indeed a significant inaccuracy by
Mm-hmm.
white. And so, again, Chernev does not indicate this in his notes, right? I mean, he doesn't come down hard on the move d takes e5, does he? On move 10, it is.
I mean, white exchanges open up the lines for his pieces. Unfortunately, this reacts in black's favor in accordance with the rule. Open lines result to the advantage of the player whose development is superior. So it's a
Okay,
short
so he
paragraph,
does he does
but it,
criticize it. Okay, all right, so he does
yeah.
criticize it. Well, yeah, it is a significantly bad move. I mean, the evaluation goes from being plus one to being better for black. You know, better for black. Maybe between half a pawn and a full pawn better for black. So, yeah, let's again look at what black should have done. I mean, what white should have done. So it looks like um, just a developing move, like rook e1, maintaining the tension in the center, defending e4, and black still doesn't want to release the tension with e takes d4. And if black castles, then white will just continue with normal moves. Um, a developing move or retrieving the bishop, and white is just positionally better. I mean, this looks like a sort of normal position from the Italian, um, where white has slightly more space and black is slightly cramped, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's just better. It's just better for white. So, okay, so d takes e5, bad move by white. Knight takes e5, and then the next move is also bad. Knight takes e5, or it's probably not the best move. It doesn't look like terrible, but it looks like white had some better options, possibly knight b to d2, and then if takes, like if black snatches this pawn. Well, actually, this is a little just sort of counterintuitive. I mean, computer thinks like white has some compensation here, despite black being just sort of up a pawn for nothing. I guess that doesn't look great for white. I wouldn't be happy about that as white.
No.
But another option is rook e1, hanging the bishop, and then we win it back with queen a4 check. This looks
Right.
somewhat more sensible from white's perspective, although computer still likes black here. Like, but maybe by slightly less. Maybe by somewhat less. Actually, yeah, it looks like this is a significantly better try for white. This is defended.
Mm-hmm.
We've neutralized black's two bishops. Yeah, it still looks sort of unclear. Yeah, okay, so rook e1 looks like the best move by white, and maybe white is getting close to equalizing there. So knight takes e5, not the best move. Queen takes, and now it looks like I predict that Stockfish will strongly condemn white's next move, knight d2. Yeah, the evaluation jumps from -1 to worse than -2.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like black is fully winning after knight to d2. So this was white's last chance to try to hold everything together. queen f3, preventing this bishop takes h3 thing. Although black would still then, it looks like black can get away with winning a pawn. Oh, I see, because there's no longer this rook e1 thing. Because if rook e1, then bishop takes f2. So he can't do that. So black would just be up a pawn for nothing here. Black would steal a pawn for nothing. That's still white's best chance, because after what white did, I mean, white obviously just blundered bishop takes h3.
Hmm.
This is a pretty common tactic, though. I've I've used this type of tactic before. When we've got this pin, all we need is to get our queen in here with check, and so we sack a piece to get to induce this move. Then we get the check in, and then we start this
Right.
big attack at the cost of a piece, but we get some pawns for it. And I mean, sometimes it can just force mate right away. So okay, so bishop takes h3. So white took, which makes things worse. I mean, again, white should just kind of eat the cost of that pawn that he's just
Hmm.
lost, and again try to consolidate here. Although, yeah, he would just be down a pawn with a much worse position. That was still his best option. So he's doubling down, making things worse. Check here, knight g4, knight f3 is pretty much forced, and then black plays this here, and then black plays bishop takes f2. Now, bishop takes f2. I mean, we can already see from the computer evaluation here, it's a big mistake. It's a big mistake. It
Yes.
spoils black's
Yes.
winning position. In fact, black has only one good move here, which is, well, only one, and there's a clearly best move. Queen here, getting, the queen was hanging, so we get the queen out of there, and now we have a bit more we have a bit more option, but the best move is just to castle and to just sit on the position. um like, black has two pawns for the piece and a big attack, and the computer just thinks that black is crushing here just on general grounds. We don't need any specific follow-up here, and by going for this specific
Yeah. But
follow-up
that
of
is a terrible, I mean, that
bishop
is
takes
a
f2.
terrible narrative.
Oh yeah.
Because well, yeah, I mean, you just sort of be like, black has this attack and is putting in there and going in, and finally, as like the death stroke, we're going to castle, all right, because we want to be playing some positionally solid, all right, and watching after that. So let's castle. No, I mean, it's terrible. It doesn't play into at all, kind of
Well,
the
yeah, I
idea
mean,
of the king side attack.
well, I don't know. I mean, like, the fact that White's king is exposed, um, is just sort of on its own decisive, according to the computer. And so the fact that we don't have like an immediate tactical, you know, culmination of that, I mean, yeah, it would be it would maybe make the game less. I mean, Chernev would not select this game for his book if but it's funny that he did select the game for his book, and that the move is that what black did is flawed. So let's take a look at why it's so flawed.
That's right.
So
Why?
white
Why is it so
resigned
flawed?
when
Mm-hmm.
he actually had um a continuation here that would have solved his problems completely. So bishop takes f7, check, and uh so I don't know why it's only
So let's see
giving
what happens if
one
black
option for black.
takes the bishop. All right.
So if takes, okay, then check, king moves, let's say king moves here, and then check, and then check. I see. And white just has a perpetual, because if black tries to avoid the perpetual with this, now he's actually losing. He has to retreat his knight, and now he no longer even has a threat, and white is just up material with like a winning attack. Okay, so white
Mm-hmm.
would have a perpetual if black takes the bishop. And so,
What
uh,
if black hides the king
yeah,
now?
well, he's got several places to hide his king. So let's look at all of them. Let's look at king d7. Now there's this shocking move, bishop e6 check. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like, again, a perpetual. Oh no, sorry, he can't retreat because then just takes the knight. Then black doesn't have anything. So he has to take the bishop and then queen d5 check, and now we have the same situation. Okay, so but maybe it's a little bit different now, because here and then check, but okay, still a perpetual. Oh, he has to run here. Okay, got it. And then white has at least this perpetual. Okay,
Yep.
and then also if black retreats right away, okay, then queen f5, same thing, a perpetual. Okay, so king d7 would not avoid a perpetual. Um, so he's got these other squares. Okay, if he moves his king up here, just check. So that doesn't, there's no reason to allow that check. Same thing with, okay, so if king d8, I guess check. Oh, I see. And then he can't go here because then again, this, and even when the king runs, then the white will just take the knight. And then black
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have this check anymore. And now he can't even, if he takes, then this, and black's attack is just over and white's up material. So the only other option would be to play king f8 here.
Yes. The computer
And
says that's the best move, doesn't it?
well, I mean, if you look at the evaluation though, Mark, it says 0. It says 0. So it's actually equivalent to all of black's moves are equivalent here. They all lead to a perpetual. None of them are better or worse than any of the other ones. They all result in the exact same outcome, which is some sort of perpetual. That's what this 0.0
Mm-hmm.
point 0 is conveying. But white has to find, I mean, king f8 is maybe the best practical try because then white has to find a very tricky move, bishop f4. Well, now the evaluation is getting slightly less clear. So maybe this is black's best option. So bishop f4, queen takes, and then bishop h5. Okay, so preparing to, again, just take here. So yeah, this bishop f4 move is just sort of deflecting the queen from 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 playing queen h3. So like black could have played queen h3 after bishop f4, but then like it doesn't do anything because now the bishop is protecting this and like
Right.
black's attack is out of steam here. So bishop f4 black needs to take, then bishop h5, so that black can't just go back with his queen because then bishop takes g4. And so then black's only move here is knight f6. And then after like takes, okay, there's no like discovery because the rook would be hanging. But what's the count here? So black is now up 2 pawns, uh, but white now has a lot of compensation because black's king is very exposed, just as white's is. So like if white plays like I don't know queen d5 or something, looks like one of
Yep.
Stockfish's top suggestions, and then there's counterplay here. This
Mm-hmm.
check doesn't achieve that much after this. This rook could come in. Um, yeah, I mean, despite black's material advantage, the position is very unclear,
It is.
based on the evaluation here. So, in conclusion, when white resigned, he missed this move, this complicated idea, bishop takes f7 check, that would have either led to a perpetual or that unclear position we just looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is something that gets totally unmentioned by Chernev. Like he didn't he didn't know about that possibility, and so he actually had totally the wrong impression about a lot of moments in this game. His notes not only reflect his own misconceptions about the game, but they of course convey those misconceptions to his readers. So I think that this is a great example of why you should not just blindly accept someone else's narrative of a game, um, from a book, from a video, from your friend at the chess club who shows you his brilliancy, and asks
From
you
your
to be
coach.
impressed by it or whatever, or from your opponent who, after the game, when he beats you, says, "Oh yeah, this was all prep. I was just winning the whole time." I mean, you shouldn't accept any of these narratives uncritically. You should actually get your hands dirty and 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 um, and interrogate that narrative to see whether it's actually true or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not true, um, well then you I mean you should perhaps be skeptical of that source always in the future. You should be
Overall,
especially skeptical of that source in the future.
overall though, okay, if we're gonna kind of go back to his key idea and the key thought, you know bishop taking h3 was a strong move,
Yes.
and it was set up because of the really unforced, move of H3. Whether you're sort of like, well, it would have worked and all that had White played this other way and all of that. I fully get that, but the idea, the basic idea, Alex, of that, if you start moving the pawns in front of your king, that there's going to be some problems that can develop for that. Do
No,
you find that to sort of be?
absolutely not. Because if we're going to blame H3, why shouldn't we also blame the fact that White castled? That's why he got into trouble too, isn't it?
Uh, but because you have to castle in
You
order
don't have
to,
to. Black didn't. Black won the game. In
mm,
fact, this game doesn't this game prove that you should never castle? Because Black won. You
no.
see what I mean? You can read all sorts of false, fallacious conclusions into, a small sample size of data, And so, um, and, you know, someone like Chernev, who's sort of a hand waver, he loves to, you know, uh, twist the data into his narrative that he's trying to convey, which is that you should always do this, you should never do this and that. He wants to make everything very logical, when in fact, the what the data is actually saying when you look at it, dispassionately, is that a lot of it comes down to concrete considerations. You know, um, a, a lot of the details in this game are based on tactical sequences that are several moves deep. Like the fact that Black could actually have snatched this pawn here and gotten away with it because of this B5 move, and then this is hanging. Or the fact that here at the end, White had this bishop takes F7 move, which was involved a lot of different possibilities, and they all happened to work. And
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of it, I mean, I'm not saying that it is random why these things work or don't work, but it's certainly not as simple as H3 is a coffeehouse move, don't play it, or castling is always good, or castling is always bad. I mean, it's just not as simple as that. So, I mean, maybe if you are like rated 900 and you don't even understand why you should castle in the first place, then okay, maybe you need someone to tell you that castling is in general good. But
Mm-hmm.
but Chernev, I think he does more than that. I don't think he just says that castling in general is good. I think he takes a specific example as evidence of why castling is good or bad, or why H3 is good or bad. And it's a bad example. I mean, it does not actually demonstrate what he says that it's demonstrating. And so then someone like you who's reading his book will be like less, that you'll be more hesitant to play H3 in the future, when in fact H3 was not the problem here.
Hesitant to play H3, hesitant to play G4. That's
This is all part of our ongoing inside joke with that, where Mark is hesitant to play G4. Yeah, so White does not play
I love
G4 in
that we
this
have to
game.
explain our inside joke at some point. All right, our viewers, you're gonna have to,
We'll show them
you
a
have to
game where
know.
you play G4 and it's strong. Yeah, exactly. So, okay,
Uh,
so bottom
well,
line,
there'll never be that game. There would never be that game, Alex.
bottom line is that this process that we just undertook of
Mm-hmm.
going through a game with a particular narrative that you've read or heard about, and 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 thinking critically about it, and seeing what the computer says to see whether those conclusions are valid. I think that this is an extremely useful process
Yes,
that
I
everyone
would agree.
can do. Now, interpreting what the computer is saying and knowing which moments are important and which are not important, and being able to derive why the computer is giving a certain evaluation rather than another evaluation, that's a hard process. That takes a lot of practice and experience, and it can be especially helpful to do it with a stronger player who is often better at interpreting these evaluations, you know, than a weaker player might be. But still the process I think is very useful. And even if all it does is raise more new questions than it answers, I still think it's useful to show that the game was more complicated than what was being presented to you in the tidy little narrative. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
I will agree with you about that. Uh, it just kind of emphasizes, the issue that I have in that, reading books takes a long time. It is a
Hmm.
sort of slow process. Looking at this game, entering it in, working it, seeing what the computer is saying, going through, making your own ideas about that. This is what, rather than just being able to be like, oh, I can read through this and I can kind of, trust, absolutely trust whatever is in here. And that's just kind of the challenge that comes in doing a deep, slow read of any book, to make sure that you are, sucking all the marrow out of the bone.
And taking and drawing the right conclusions, because what if
Yes,
you were
yes.
if reading a book uncritically and it were a lot easier for you to do and you could get through the book a lot more quickly, except that all of the lessons you learned from the book were faulty and you were totally mistuning your internal parameters about when to play H3 or when to castle or when not to castle or when not to play A4 or whatever. Yeah, it would be easy, but you would be like teaching yourself to be mediocre. I mean,
Mm-hmm,
like that
mm-hmm.
would actually, if the goal was to get to a certain level at chess, you could actually be like running in the wrong direction by doing that.
Yes.
You could be severely impeding your own progress. So even though this process takes longer on the front end, it could actually be, way more efficient in the long term in
Right.
terms of getting you better at chess than just uncritically accepting someone else's narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anyway, so well, this was great, Mark. I'm glad we did this.
I'm glad we.
And I,
Now,
as
are we going
always,
to continue to tear apart poor Chernev here?
we'll find it. We'll
Because
pick a different target next time, Mark. But but thanks to everybody for watching our video.
yes.
You can check out our other videos on my Alex King Chess YouTube channel, and
Mm-hmm.
we hope to have another one for you soon enough. But until then, take care, guys. Bye, Mark.
Bye bye.